And that was communicated in the magnificent architecture that we see at the Federal Reserve. Of course, the Federal Reserve never really was a Federal Reserve Bank. It was actually called that in 1996 by Bob and Ann Burke, who set up a restaurant after a local bank failed. Of course, because it had no insurance. Who knew that shopping could be historical? We're now standing in front of America's first enclosed shopping mall, the Arcade. And as it turns out, the great tradition of American shopping goes all the way back to 1828. In fact, when this building was built, two architects who worked on the design of it, Warren and Buckley, could not agree on the most historic finish for the ends of the building. Well, it turns out that one thought it should be this beautiful rectangular stepped parapet. Along the roof line, we see all of the rectangle work, arcing back to some of the most historic architecture of ancient times. The other architect thought it should be different. He thought the most classical way to finish it was a traditional gable A-frame, which we see on the opposite side of the building. Well, like two children in a sandbox, they finally settled it. One did one end, the other did the other end, and legend has it that they never spoke to each other again. Everywhere you go in downtown Providence, you're going to see the beautiful Palladian arch. Paladin was an Italian architect who saw that the graceful lines of the curved arch was pleasing to the eye and made buildings especially attractive. This pudding stone building, a soft stone that could be carved into beautiful shapes that you see, in fact, show the arches of Providence at their very finest. 9 arches in all comprise the entire facade of this beautiful little historic gem found next to America's first enclosed shopping mall. Some of the builders that actually had the money to do the arch windows did them. Others put in square windows and then added arched brick lines or other arched architectural elements to create this sense of beauty that dates back to the famous Italian architect, Paladin. The Palladian arch, so pleasing to the eye, really is one of the things that makes Providence not only an historic city, but also a beautiful city to walk. We used to have tens of thousands of pigeons in Providence, and people would try everything to get rid of them. Couldn't get rid of them. Then they put a falcon's roost on the top of this building, and once the falcons came down in residence, that was it. The falcon loves squab for breakfast. There's a few that are under the trees at Kennedy Plaza, and they're smart enough to stay there. And there's another group that stays on the backside of buildings, out of sight of the falcons. Waybosset Street has always been one of the main shopping and commercial thoroughfares of downtown Providence. The block we're looking at here is one of the most historic and actually represents one of the great restoration stories in America. The center building with the brick facade is called the Wilcox Building. And in 1974, in one of the worst fires in the history of Rhode Island, that building burned completely out. It was thought that the building would be torn down, along with the entire block. But through the efforts of preservationists here in the city, it was possible to convince the federal government, for the first time anywhere, to devote federal funds to the restoration of a historic structure. So now the 3 buildings stand, thriving with a beautiful French restaurant on one side and other commercial establishments along with lots of offices. The facades of the buildings have been restored and are currently under restoration. And this building represents Rhode Islanders, one of the greatest victories of preservation. Even in spite of fire, and in spite of all of the age, we managed to hold on to buildings that are historic and are precious to everyone that lives in Providence and beyond.